21st Century Entrepreneurship with Martin Piskarik.
Maybe the best way to start is, can you introduce yourself, and are you an entrepreneur? Who are you? Who is Jan?
So my name is Jan Vermeiren. I'm the founder of The Compassionate Leader. And since I'm the founder, I'm an entrepreneur, like many of the listeners of the podcast.
Are you a full-time entrepreneur, or you are still having full-time job and being an entrepreneur?
No. This is I'm a full-time entrepreneur. This is my...
So you are for real?
Yes, for real. This is my second company. I sold my previous company. Was called Networking Coach a few years ago. And then I started this one.
Was that a successful story?
Oh, do we have 3 hours for all the successes and all the failures?
Yes, we have. Let's copycat Joe with his podcast, 4+ hours with Elon Musk and other guests.
So it's, yeah.
No, I mean, are you satisfied with the sales process? Did you sold it well?
It was, you hear me hesitating because it was a very interesting process. It was also a personal process.
Okay.
And a business process. And because I was...
Do you want to talk about it, or do you want to skip the topic? You are okay with the topic?
Yeah, just briefly, it's okay. For me, it was a harder time in my personal life, and I know because of that piece, I didn't sell the company for, let's say, the best value I could get. But at that moment in my life, it was okay how it went.
I understand. I mean, you have so much guidelines and websites for buying and selling US-based companies, and one of the first rule is find somebody with problems, with personal problems. It's a hardcore topic, but it seems that's the way the market usually works.
Yeah, it depends a little bit, but in my case, it was different because I sold it to someone from my team, and that's also one of the reasons I didn't go out looking for buyers, and nobody was, let's say, contacting me.
Okay.
But for me, it was
was it a lesson learned?
Oh, it was for me, becoming an entrepreneur was for me one of the major things. Was it was a catalyst for my personal development, for my development as a human being.
That's what I thought. That's why I'm asking you. Yes.
Yeah, and that's for me. Let's say, for me, the money, that's also part of doing business and life. But for me, it's much more interesting how I can develop as a human being. Yeah.
Absolutely. So basically, you are developing yourself, not only your business, if I understand you well.
Yeah, and for me, it is, and it's maybe more a spiritual point of view. It's also what happens in the business is it's showing what is going on in my personal life. As long as I'm the founder or the owner of the company, let's say if you look at big multinationals, the founder is probably already dead for a while. So, and then other people are there and they're just hired to do something. It's a very different story for me.
Can you please explain a little bit what the mirroring effect is? And I mean, we are basically speaking about mirroring. So your vibe, your energy is manifested through your business as well. So what's your experience? How could you help our audience to understand that? Because usually, let me try to do it this way. Usually people think they are one person when they have a mask of entrepreneur, and they are a completely different person when they have mask of being father or being, whatever. But the truth is a little bit different, isn't it?
Yeah.
They are only masks, but you are,
yes, they're
you're
masking.
authentic yourself, no matter which role do you play at the moment.
Yeah, and it is for me, and then maybe I refer to what I do now with a compassionate leader is one of the things that's talked about a lot is the ego, right? The ego of people, and especially when you're an entrepreneur and you want to manifest yourself in the outside world. Sometimes people say, "Oh, he or she has a big ego," and most of the time it's not a not a positive thing. But for me, it's
But
one
you
of the
can
things.
manifest soul as well. And
Yeah,
you're probably
and the
more
thing,
manifesting soul than ego in your business.
yeah, and then it depends on what you call ego. But that's why I use it in the book because many people talk about it. But yeah, many times you get into discussions about the word. But what I wanted to say, and to refer back to what you were saying before, is that about the masks. For me, it's about my inner parts that come out more. For example, when I need to protect myself and I feel to protect myself, then a more dominant part comes out. That it's, let's say, in its positive quality. It's, for example, bringing structure. For example, structure a sales process. That's kind of a structure. But when that part in me goes too hard or too fast, it becomes negative behavior and it becomes rigid. It becomes not open anymore to other ideas from other people or from myself. And that's what for me is that happens in everybody's personal life. But for me, it's even more magnified when you have a business. Then more things come on your way. You need to work with maybe a team, but also with suppliers, with customers, maybe business partners, with the government, with the delivery guy for the mail or a package or whatever, and yeah, many more opportunities for self-development and to discover which of the parts are, let's say, are balanced and which of the parts of myself are not balanced yet, can be seen. And that's one of the things I learned in my personal life is that that it's about, there are many points of view of life and how to evolve and so, but for me it's really about the balancing of parts, and that for me was a real breakthrough in my own life, and it helped me to become more compassionate, and becoming more compassionate helps me also to become more successful. So that's also a message I'm sharing in the book.
Yeah, actually flexibility is stability. And in life very often there is no A or B, but it's A and B. And a lot of people do not understand that. And I like the way you express that topic. You are based in Belgium, or where are you based?
Yeah,
you're based in Belgium. I have a friend from Belgium, and there is a difference between expressing yourself in Belgium and, for example, in the US, isn't it?
Yeah, if you generalize it, yes.
I mean, I am. We will not go too deep into the neuro-linguistic programming topic, but let's stay on generalizations and say there are some cultural differences. So, for example, or maybe not, I don't know if you can help me. So when you sit with a friends and drink cafe or beer or whatever, do you think, okay, maybe you per se is not the great example because you are in personal development business on some way, but for any other person in Belgium, are they communicate each other on the same way as in the US regarding their personal issues, problems, personal development, or are you culturally speaking more closed in that field of communication, or is it the same as in the US?
Not so easy to answer that question, because when I just look at Belgium,
I know. I like to do
country.
complex questions. I'm just kidding.
No, Belgium is a complex country as well. We have a Dutch-speaking part in the north,
Okay.
and we have a French-speaking part in the south, and that's already different culture. That's already, people already behave differently. And then we have the capital, that's Brussels, and Brussels is kind of, and it's the capital of Europe, which has also another kind of energy.
So it is a very complex topic.
Yeah, it's it's a very small country, but a very complex one. But let me answer differently to your question. Is when I see the difference between, if you say the States and let's say the Eastern way, is the States is okay. Let's do business. Let's do business with each other, and let's get to know each other along the way. While in the East, it's like, okay, let's first get to know each other and then do business. And then let's say, I think Europe is in between. And if you look at, for example, the Netherlands, which is north of Belgium, they're more like the Americans. And the more you go south in Europe, the more you're already going more to the Eastern way. But again, it's hard to generalize in that way.
It is hard. And one of the reasons why I'm asking you that is, what is your target market? So it's a very complex environment if we are talking about European Union, but we are living in a age of internet and online business. So do you have a specific market? Do you target the US as a market, or a specific type of people, of readers?
Yeah, for me, let's say if you talk about target markets, for me it's a very, let's say, very non-human way to describe things. But okay, let's go with the term.
Let me rephrase the question. When you wrote the book, who was in your mind? To what kind of person did you wrote that book?
Yeah, it's for me. It's the, on the one hand is the business owner or leader. On the other hand are the coaches, and people who are interested, or maybe even more interested or eager to go from what I call the positive vibe to the inspiring vibe. So in the book, I make a distinction between 4 vibes: negative vibe, neutral vibe, positive vibe, and inspiring vibe. And,
okay. Can you explain a little bit, please?
Yeah. So what you see in the negative vibe, people, the behavior of people is that they complain, that they blame others, that they also, let's say, hang around water coolers a lot. And yeah, okay, let's start with just small the behavior. In the positive vibe, people are doing their job, but nothing more. If they have a task to do, and it's done, then they just wait till their boss or someone else give them the next thing. They're not going to proactively see if there is more work or help their colleagues. Then the positive vibe, then people start working together as a team. They're like, how can we do this together? They're more future oriented. And the inspiring vibe is the hardest to describe, but it's like when you enter a room and you feel an energy there that you immediately start having ideas and want to start creating, and get or inspired to do things. So that are the 4 vibes. And what are I have a model with 2 axes, and the one axis is how safe people feel, and the other axis is how supported people feel. So in the negative vibe, people don't feel safe, psychologically safe, and they don't feel supported. So that's why they're let's say, acting out, not because they don't want to work or they are negative people at the core, but it's kind of self-protection mechanisms that are in play. The neutral vibe, they already feel a little bit more safe and a little bit more supported, but not enough yet. So they're still in a little bit of a protection mode. People in the positive vibe, they feel safe enough and they feel supported enough to say, okay, I don't have to protect myself. Let's go for it. And the people in the inspiring vibe, they feel very safe and very supported, and they are willing to share their shadow side or blind spots, the things that they did wrong, and they say, and then they're very open about that because they know if I can share this, and I feel safe enough, it helps me to grow as a human being. So that are the four vibes, and the people, the main target group, because of course everybody has can learn something in the book, but the main audience I wrote a book for was for people say, okay, I really want to make that step from the positive vibe to the inspiring vibe, but I don't know how to do that. I don't have the tools or pathway to get there.
I'm just looking at our correspondence before the podcast, and one of the things you wrote me is how important the focus is on what leaders can do themselves and how they can support their teams. So if you can, Jan, please share a little bit more about that topic with us.
Yeah. The main thing for me is that that we need to face tensions. When we feel tension in life, most of the times we don't want it, we are not comfortable with it, and then we ignore it or we push it away. And what happens then, and if it starts, many times it starts to build up and it becomes bigger, and then it's very much harder to do anything with it. And most of the time it's also a mix of several kinds of tension. So in the book, I make a distinction between three categories. The first one is practical or process tension. The second is personal tension, and the third one is interpersonal tension. So practical tension can be like you want to send out an email, but you don't have internet connection. A process tension could be that you ordered something in the web shop, and it's a one-day delivery on the site, and after 5 days you still haven't received your package, then something in the process went wrong. So that's a process tension. Then personal tension could be many people have a fear of speaking in public. That gives them a personal tension. Or what you also see many entrepreneurs that they set out goals. They say, oh, I really want to reach this goal. I really want to accomplish this. But most people, most entrepreneurs that you ask that question again 6 months later, like, hey, how did it go? Did you reach your goal? Most of them haven't reached that goal. And what happens then also that they feel kind of ashamed, or they start blaming themselves, and they just pull themselves down and decrease their vibe at the same time. So that's kind of a personal tension. And then interpersonal tension is between people, right? That you don't feel comfortable in someone's company, or you have a fight with them or a conflict. And it could be someone from the team, could be a supplier, could be a customer, could be anyone. And what happens most of the time, because most of us don't really know how to deal with those tensions, is that they start to mix. So, for example, what happens in many entrepreneurs' lives is they, yeah, they don't have internet connection, and they just wanted to send out an email to a customer, and it's very important customer for them. So it's something practical. The email can get out, but then they say, "Oh no, the customer won't receive my email, and it's very important what they're going to say, or they're going to yell at me, or they're not going to do business with me," and it gives them a personal tension. And then they say, "Okay, I need to have a solution for this," so they call their provider. But since they then or not, since they didn't do anything with that personal tension, most of the times it comes out in the interpersonal contact. So they start yelling or blaming the company when they have the help desk agent on the line. And yeah, of course, that help desk agent like, "Oh, what's going on here?" that energy comes to me, so I'm going to go in a defensive position, and then you get an interpersonal conflict. While it's at the core, it's just a practical thing. And maybe when you're fighting on the phone with the customer service agent, maybe the internet is already running again. And that's what happens a lot. It becomes a mix, and when we have those mixes, it becomes harder to see what's really about. We have the practical tension, and then we have a layer of personal tension above that, and then we have on top of that the interpersonal tension, and we have to kind of drill down through those two layers of tension to really solve what's really about. So one of the most, to answer your question, so one of the most important things for me in life, both as a human being and as an entrepreneur, is to really see what is the tension about, what kind of tension is it, what does it do to me, and what I'm going to do it when I'm in contact with other people.
I like the structure and layers you talked about. Can we find specific steps or a model how to approach to pretty complex structure in your book? So are there any guidance? So
yes,
are you helping us on some way how to navigate through all that?
Yeah, so I've created what I call the DUIT process. And so DUIT is an acronym. It's 4 steps. So the D stands for detect and face the tension. So instead of ignoring it, I'm gonna face it. So it takes 1 second, this step, but you need to take it. You need to say, okay, I see the tension or I feel the tension. Okay, now I'm gonna look at it and not ignore it. So that's step 1. Step 2 is U. The U stands for understand and solve the tension.
Okay.
Yeah, and understand means what kind of tension is it? Is it a practical tension? Is it a personal tension or an interpersonal tension? So and sometimes it's a mix. So then we have to.
I mean, it's very interesting approach. It's like I'm reprogramming myself on some way.
yeah. That one
Maybe.
of the techniques. One of the techniques actually does that. And so
really?
The next step is so the U stands for understand and solve the tension. So the U is the 3 different categories, and solve the tension. I have in each category I have a technique to do that. So for the interpersonal tension, it's called the compassion technique. It's when you feel disadvantaged by someone else, when you feel limited by someone else, you can do the technique and you will feel a lot more free and see more options again. For the practical tension, I have compassionate problem solving. It's especially when you can do it for yourself, but especially with others and with the team, it's very, very powerful. Because many times what happens when you have a practical tension, people start blaming someone and finding a scapegoat. But the problem then is that most of the time the person that is blamed is also the one who needs to solve the problem or needs to help in solving it. But it's very human, let's say, common human behavior. When I'm blamed, I'm going into defensive mode. So yeah, that's not a good way to do this. So in the compassionate problem solving, we get rid of the blaming part, and we define the problem, the practical tension, in an objective way, but also not only objective way, without blaming someone, but also what the impact on the organization or the team or the individual is. And that's just putting it in objective words and adding the impact does something. It's something we don't normally do. Many times it's just like, the internet doesn't work, that provider sucks. It's just venting, it's complaining, it's getting rid of the tension. But many times we don't voice it, we don't put the words in it. That helps to find a solution. So that's the second technique. And then the third technique in this for solving the personal tension is called the ABCs of distressing. I learned that from another lady in Belgium, Marina Rinslag, and she invented this technique I have to tell something about it first. Is many times when we feel stress, most of the times when we feel stress, it is because we experienced a lack of control in the past. For example, when you learned to ride a bike as a kid and you fell, maybe you got a mini blackout there. So you got a loss of control. And that's it. That's one of the many situations we experience in our life. And it's not the big traumas, let's say, not only the big traumas, but the very small things that are, let's say, registered in our body.
Yes, of course.
And that is when we have, what normally, what normally happens when we have an experience, all the sensory signals, what we see, what we smell, what we hear, are clustered as a memory, and stored in our brain. Now, when we experience a loss of control, those sensory signals are not clustered as a memory, but they are stored separately and attached to our amygdala. And what happens then when 3 or more of those signals...
Just Jan, please, if you can explain. So amygdala is a part of ancient brain, and if you can say of the 3 basic functions of,
so the amygdala, what it kind of does is, one of the things it does is it helps you to perceive danger.
Yes.
So you can protect yourself. So and then that's what happens when 3 or more of those sensory signals are picked up. Then the alarm signals in our brain goes off, and then we experience stress. And actually, it's good. It's a good thing. And then we get the fight, flight, or freeze reaction. So let's say it's a good mechanism to have as a human being. Especially many years ago, or hundreds of years ago, when we had to struggle for our survival. But at this moment in time, it's not necessary anymore for most of the stress.
Too much of red light, and it's...
And so it's a very interesting technique that she invented, the ABCs of distressing, to also physically detach those sensory signals from the amygdala, so you're not experience that stress anymore.
So your book is very practical.
Yeah, it gives, on the one hand, in the 4 first chapters, it's more about insights, about vibes, about tension, about bonding cycle. And then the duet process is explained with all the different techniques, and also most of them are worked out in the book into detail, so you can really apply it. And then also for entrepreneurs who have teams, there are also 2 chapters how they can help their team.
I was surprised the first time you called me on the telephone. You testified you hadn't seen me.
I suppose it's not only about the book. Are you giving additional support? Do you have a coaching sessions or consulting or?
Yeah. So the book is, the idea was that for many most cases people can already use the techniques from the book, but sometimes when it's about blind spots, it's harder to do that on your own. There are techniques in the book to help you with that, but sometimes it's still hard to do that. And then it's always easier to work with a coach. So that's something I do. And also now training more coaches. So they're more people
they're capable of sharing your knowledge. Like a TTT, training actually program, something like that.
So they then know about all the techniques, and they can apply it with their own clients or with people who contact us. But also, I give a lot of presentations and in the training courses, and also in companies. Sometimes we also facilitate teams. So we would not only the entrepreneur, right? when people are solo entrepreneurs, so business owners, and it's kind of a coaching session. But for me, I like to call it more a sparring partner session. It's more an equal. Feel those words for me are more equal, sparring partner and coach. Sometimes there is an association with that word that a coach is higher or whatever, but it's not equal. So that's why I don't use the word coach.
Yeah, sure. I understand. What is your business model? Do you have any, I would not say tips and tricks, but did you find something specifically good for your business that you are practicing on a daily basis? Or?
Another 7-hour podcast.
Of course.
Okay, my top things, because you asked many questions. So my previous company is called Networking Coach, and if people know me, it's my second book was called How to Really Use LinkedIn. So that's my main medium still. Very proud that we were the first LinkedIn training partner in the world. So as a small Belgian company.
Wow, that's amazing. So you are a LinkedIn expert and you're using LinkedIn.
Yeah, so I sold that company. So I'm not doing anything with that anymore, but I'm using it myself. All the tips I shared, all those for more than 10 years with lots of people.
You are very humble, and that's beautiful. But believe me, you are a LinkedIn expert. I mean, considering other people.
Let me share one big thing that most people don't get or not know. The real power of a network is in the second degree. So it's not who you know, but who they know. I mean, when you want, as an entrepreneur, you want to have more customers. This is a principle that applies. So it means that you have also many referral clubs like BNI, it's worldwide, one of those. Many people also, they're focused like, oh, I want to get more business out of that group that's here. Let's say 20 people. How can I do business with them? But they forget that if you just look at their networks, let's say if each of them has 300 people in their LinkedIn network, that's 6,000 people. So it's much more just from quantity. Many more opportunities are there than in that first degree network. Now, the clue is you have to have a good relationship with your first degree network, otherwise they cannot help you. So that's also why I tell people not to just randomly connect with others, because they don't know you, you don't know them, so you cannot really help each other. So build your relationship with your first degree network, and then use LinkedIn to see who's in their network and ask them to be introduced. This is it's so simple, but it's so powerful.
Beautiful.
And this is my major tip. I shared it with
beautiful.
I don't know many people. 100,000, millions. I don't know how many people read that book.
Can you share that with my partner Daria as well, please? Because sometimes she's telling me, that LinkedIn, that's bullshit.
Yeah. Okay.
It's not for making business. What would you say to Daria? Is it a bullshit story, or you can make a business via LinkedIn?
It's amazing business tool if you use it the right way. Because what I'm saying is use LinkedIn to see who is in the network of your first degree connections, and then stop using LinkedIn. Then pick up the phone. So, for example, us. You call me. You say, "Okay, I saw that guy is in your network. Can you introduce me to him?" And then we just talk a little bit about the connections, and because maybe I'm connected with the other guy on LinkedIn, but the relationship is not that good. Maybe I also connected in the early days of LinkedIn. I also connected randomly, so there are still some of those fossils left.
Yes.
But that could be the case. So that's one of the things that you need to check in a phone call. And then what I call in that book, in How to Really Use LinkedIn, the magic mail. What does it mean is that I introduce you to the other guy in one email. Yeah? So you can see that I did that, and you can follow up. So I don't have to be in the middle anymore. And this is a very powerful approach. So what many people don't get about LinkedIn, they say, I need to have a good profile. Yes, you need that, but not for the reason that many people think. Many people think, I need to have a good profile, and then people will find me and call me or contact me and do business with me. No.
And they are not engaged, and their engagement level is zero, probably.
Yeah, and that's not. Yeah, and they're just like waiting for something to happen.
Yeah, just waiting. Yeah.
Now, why do you need a good profile? Is because if I will introduce you to, let's call the other guy Jack. Jack says, I don't know this Martin guy. Who is he? And then he looks at your LinkedIn profile. And then he says, okay, I see what he is doing. Okay, this might be interesting. So you need to have a good profile when you're introduced by someone else that you are the expert you claim to be. That's why you need to have a good profile. For me also, when people say, I don't have time to post a lot on LinkedIn, for me, it's absolutely not the first thing to do. That's what I told all companies. We worked from over 500 companies in the world, and many major ones like Nike, Siemens, IBM, a lot of banks. All told them the same thing. If you have time left, okay, then you are very active on LinkedIn posting things, but it's not the first thing to do. First, make sure that your profile is good and you build your network, but then start looking in the second degree network and ask for those introductions.
I was feeling cute, unexpectedly you.
That's kind of the main thing to do about LinkedIn. There's lots and lots of details.
Of course. But people can buy your first book and learn more about LinkedIn.
Yeah, it's still available, I think, but it's How to Really Use LinkedIn. That's the 3rd edition. That's updated again, but it's not my name on it anymore, but the guys who took over my company.
Then, guys, you will need to call Jan, and he will give you a special price, and he will coach you how to use LinkedIn. By the way, now I understand why you have such a good structure in your second book, because on most cases, my background is IT. So I was one of top programmers during high school on the state level, and I was involved in tech companies, etc. So that gave me a good structure of thinking. And when I started with personal development, I still had my structure of thinking. And there are a lot of personal development experts, even gurus, without a good structure.
Mm-hmm.
And very often you need to have a good structure because people are not aware of their wholeness, they are not aware of their body, they are not aware of their, they are aware of their thoughts. And it's very good that you wrote about vibe and tension and all those things, but you wrote it on a and presented and showcased on a structured way. So when I buy your book, I can go through a specific structure and I can follow some specific steps. That's the case.
Yeah. Yes.
And I think that we can actually make a connection between your LinkedIn expertise and your new expertise. So now how would you define yourself? I mean, so you were LinkedIn expert, and then some shit happened in your life, and you were at the beginning of a personal development path, or something like that. Or
no.
Was it a shift, or was it organic growth? You just started thinking about personal development, about soft topics, or how did it happen?
No, let's say my personal development path started many years ago with my first company. Let's say the first.
Why? I mean, why you started with personal development? Were you frustrated, or you wanted to learn how to communicate better with people, or you felt, or because in most cases people are feeling bad, and that's the reason why they started developing themselves to feeling better?
No, for me,
maybe that's not your case.
No, that was not the start. It was more like people I met in my life, and talked about different things than I experienced, and I was open-minded and curious, and I said, okay, good. There's much more in life than I can.
Well, that's a nice story. So actually, you did not have big catastrophes, and that was a trigger for your personal development, but you actually spoke with some personal development experts, and they told
I didn't speak to a personal development expert. It's just people I met in my life, just on a personal, just say, people who shared their experiences.
So you're a pretty open person then.
Yeah. Yes.
You're lucky.
But then
you're lucky. No, really, you are.
But I don't want to say that didn't have let's say the midlife crisis and everything that's involved with that, and because even when I was on a personal development path and a spiritual development path, I also encountered let's say the dark night of the soul, and let's say what you would call deep shit, but it's
it's a learning curve. It's a learning curve. It's completely normal.
It's part of it's what I call it's part of the game of life as a human being. So my first book was Let's Connect, about networking, the offline networking at conferences and stuff like that. My second book, How to Really Use LinkedIn. Then when I sold the company then I said, okay, I'm not going to do anything for a year, a sabbatical. But then after 3 months, the third book said, sit down and write me. So it's called Life is a Game. It's really about personal and spiritual development, and also part of my own process. And it's what I was doing myself and my team in the background. When the company of networking coach, where we had a team, but I only worked with people who had interest in personal development. And I didn't work with employees, but only with people who were self-employed. It was a specific structure. But for me, it was the way that worked for me and still works now. And then for me, it was like, hey, how can I put the knowledge that I have and experience that I have, how can I help the business world again? Because Life is a Game is more on a personal level, and maybe it's for some people too spiritual. But I thought, okay, how can I help people who are, let's say, in their business life, or how can I help them make the transition in that path? So I looked for techniques that are very grounded, very down to earth, nothing soft or in the clouds or whatever. So for me, it is still spiritual, but for me, spiritual it's also very down to earth, very day to day. It's not something when you meditate or when you're in church or whatever. It's what we do every moment of the day. For me, in the Compassionate Leader, in this book, I translated that in what you can do on a day-to-day basis and in your business life when you are working with a team or with customers or suppliers. What can you do there?
So Jan, we spoke about so much topics. I wanted to cover as much as I could, as you are a very interesting person and a great expert on many fields, and you have very good basis, and you are on the right path for making even bigger things on a global scale with your holistic approach and specific structure. So I want to wrap up on some way, but you need to help me. So please help me.
Yeah, one of the things.
Do you have one-liner or something?
So yeah, one thing I didn't mention why I also wrote a book for entrepreneurs, and I talked about the vibes and why I want to help them transition from the positive to the inspiring vibe, is that not many people realize that their own vibe level is the ceiling for the vibe level of the people that are working with them. Mm-hmm. So it means if my vibe level is neutral, I can only people who are in a negative or a neutral vibe level will work with me, both as a team, as suppliers, as customers, as business partners. And that's not what you want. As an entrepreneur, you want to work with the best ones. So you need to raise your vibe first, the inspiring vibe, so you can attract also all those people in that inspiring vibe as well.
Could we have a better end of this discussion? I don't think so. Can you please tell us, is there a website or how can we contact you?
Yeah, so the website is called thecompassionateleader.org. So the name of the book is also The Compassionate Leader, and the website, thecompassionateleader.org. And people can also find there some free resources. There's a free ebook. There's a free community for people who feel, let's say, inspired by this, or they feel connected with what I'm telling today. There's also a free video of the compassion technique. So there are lots of free stuff, free articles, of course, I would say, that people can find on the website.
So we can learn a lot.
Yes.
Thank you, Jan, for being in 21st century entrepreneurship.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to our guest stories this week.
21st Century Entrepreneurship with Martin Piskarik.